Deep within the endless green expanse of the Amazon rainforest, where the air hums with the secrets of 1,000 years, there lies a mystery that defies imagination. This isn't just a wilderness, it's a living, breathing puzzle, hiding entire civilizations swallowed by time. For centuries, explorers and scientists believed the Amazon was a pristine, untouched jungle, too harsh for large-scale human settlement. But what if we told you that beneath its towering trees and tangled vines, the earth holds the ruins of sprawling cities, forgotten roads, and monuments to cultures that thrived here long before modern history began? These aren't just scattered ruins, they're the remnants of sophisticated societies, some home to tens of thousands of people, with advanced agriculture, engineering, and art. Imagine towering pyramids cloaked in moss, vast plazas where ceremonies once echoed, and intricate networks of roads connecting bustling urban centers. These lost cities tell a story that rewrites everything we thought we knew about the Amazon. And today, we're going to uncover 25 of these enigmatic places, each with its own tale of glory, mystery, and disappearance. This journey isn't just about stones and soil, it's about the people who built these wonders, the civilizations that vanished, and the clues they left behind. What happened to them? Why were these cities abandoned? And how did the jungle erase them from memory? As we peel back the layers of time, you'll see the Amazon in a whole new light, not as an untamed wilderness, but as a cradle of human ingenuity waiting to be rediscovered. So grab your metaphorical explorer's hat, because we're about to step into the shadows of the past, where every crumbling wall has a story to tell. Our first stop on this journey through the vanished civilizations of the Amazon takes us deep into the Xingu region, where the lost city of Kuhikugu lies hidden beneath the forest canopy. Unlike the solitary ruins we might expect, Kuhikugu wasn't just one city. It was an entire network of interconnected settlements, linked by wide roads and sturdy wooden bridges that spanned rivers and streams. Picture a thriving civilization where communities were woven together like threads in a tapestry, all part of the ancient Kuhikugu people's world. What makes Kuhikugu truly remarkable is the sheer ingenuity of its inhabitants. These weren't just hunter-gatherers surviving in the wilderness, they were master agriculturalists who shaped the land to sustain thousands. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of sprawling fish farms where the Kuhikugu cultivated food on a massive scale. They didn't just rely on the jungle's bounty, they engineered it, creating ponds and channels to raise fish as a stable protein source. Alongside this, they cultivated vast fields of manioc, a starchy root crop that became a staple of their diet. This wasn't subsistence farming, it was an advanced system designed to support a bustling, organized society. For centuries, Kuhikugu remained hidden, its secrets swallowed by the relentless growth of the rainforest. But modern technology finally pulled back the veil. Satellite imagery revealed the ghostly outlines of its roads, plazas, and moats, geometric patterns etched into the earth, invisible from the ground but unmistakable from above. These images showed a carefully planned urban landscape, proving that the Amazon was far from an untouched wilderness. Instead, it was once home to sophisticated cultures who lived in harmony with their environment while reshaping it to meet their needs. Yet the greatest mystery of Kuhikugu isn't just how its people lived, it's why they vanished. Some researchers believe disease brought by European colonizers may have played a role, while others point to shifts in climate or resource management. Whatever the cause, the legacy of this lost city lingers, not just in crumbling earthworks but in the stories of the Kuhikugu's descendants, who still inhabit the region today. Their oral histories speak of a time when their ancestors walked those very roads, bridging the gap between the past and present. From the earthbound wonders of Kuhikugu, we now turn to a legend that has captivated imaginations for centuries: El Dorado, the mythical city of gold. Unlike the tangible ruins we've explored so far, El Dorado is a story wrapped in obsession. shimmering with the allure of untold riches. But buried beneath the layers of myth lies a truth far more fascinating than fiction. The legend didn't spring from nowhere. It was born from real rituals of the Muisca people, a sophisticated civilization high in the Andes, whose ceremonies involved covering their leaders in gold dust and offering treasures to sacred lakes. Spanish conquistadors, hungry for wealth, twisted these rituals into tales of a golden city hidden deep in the jungle, sparking expeditions that claimed countless lives in pursuit of a mirage. Yet the Amazon holds more than just echoes of myth. Archaeologists have uncovered gold artifacts and ceremonial sites that suggest thriving trade networks and advanced metalworking long before European contact. In places like Lake Guatavita, where the Muisca performed their golden ceremonies, divers have recovered offerings of figurines and jewelry, proof that the Golden One was not a place, but a person, a ritual, a cultural tradition misunderstood by outsiders. The real El Dorado wasn't a city of gleaming towers. It was a civilization rich in artistry and spiritual depth, its true value lying not in gold, but in the ingenuity of its people. What's remarkable is how the El Dorado myth evolved into a metaphor for the Amazon itself, a place of infinite possibility where reality and legend blur. Modern technology has peeled back the jungle's layers to reveal cities like those of the Casarabe culture in Bolivia, with monumental earthworks and urban planning that rival the scale of ancient Mesopotamia. These discoveries force us to ask, did the conquistadors, in their relentless search for gold, overlook the real treasures of the Amazon, the stories, the innovations, the civilizations that flourished without stone or metal, shaping their world in ways we're only beginning to understand? The jungle keeps its secrets well, but each clue we uncover chips away at the myth, revealing a truth far more precious than gold. Beneath the emerald canopy of the Amazon, where rivers carve secrets into the earth, whispers persist of a place far stranger than any ruin, Akakor, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers said to stretch deep beneath the jungle floor. The story begins with a German journalist named Karl Brugger, who in the 1970s claimed to have met a man named Tatanka Nara, a self-proclaimed prince of the Ug-Amongulala tribe. According to Nara, his ancestors were the guardians of Akakor, a vast underground city built by ancient gods, filled with golden artifacts, crystal-lit halls, and libraries of forgotten knowledge. Brugger's book, The Chronicle of Akakor, became a sensation, blending indigenous lore with sensational claims of advanced technology and extraterrestrial connections. But here's where the mystery thickens. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss Akakor as pure fabrication, pointing to the lack of physical evidence and Brugger's reliance on a single, dubious source, Tatanka Nara, whose own identity later unraveled under scrutiny. Investigators discovered he was likely a German man named Gunther Hawk, who'd fabricated his tribal heritage. Yet despite the skepticism, fragments of indigenous stories across the Amazon speak of hidden worlds below, tunnels used for refuge during wars or catastrophes. The Yanomami people, for instance, describe vast subterranean networks they call Shabono, while other tribes recount legends of ancestors retreating underground to escape invaders. Could these oral traditions hint at a kernel of truth beneath Akakor's myth? Modern expeditions using ground-penetrating radar have indeed uncovered anomalies, unnatural cavities and geometric patterns beneath the forest floor in regions like Brazil's Roncador Mountains. While none confirm a sprawling city, they suggest human activity far more complex than previously assumed. The real Akakor may not be a golden metropolis, but something equally intriguing, a mosaic of half-remembered history, indigenous resilience, and the enduring human impulse to imagine and seek the extraordinary. After all, the Amazon has taught us this much: where science ends, the jungle's whispers begin. Among the most enduring legends of the Amazon is Paititi, the fabled last stronghold of the Inca Empire. As Spanish conquistadors tightened their grip on the Andes in the 16th century, stories spread of a hidden city where Inca rulers fled with their treasures, a place so remote, so shrouded in jungle that it remained untouched by invaders. For centuries, Paititi existed as little more than a whisper, a tantalizing what if for explorers and historians alike. But what if the jungle has been hiding clues all along? Recent advances in technology have brought us closer than ever to unraveling this mystery. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, has pierced the dense Amazon canopy, revealing startling geometric shapes in Peru's Madre de Dios region. These aren't random formations, they're the outlines of massive terraces, plazas, and even what appear to be roadways, all eerily reminiscent of Inca engineering. The scale is staggering. One site, known as the Los Piedras complex, spans over 100 acres, with structures that align with celestial events in ways the Inca were known to prioritize. Could this be Paititi, or at least a piece of its puzzle? Yet the truth may be even more fascinating than the legend. While Paititi is often imagined as a single golden city, archaeologists now suspect it was part of a broader network of Inca refuges, a scattering of settlements deep in the Amazon, where the empire's survivors adapted to the jungle while preserving their traditions. Expeditions led by researchers like Gregory Dermenjon have uncovered artifacts in these remote areas, pottery shards with classic Inca motifs, stone tools, and even remnants of ceremonial platforms. These finds suggest not a sudden disappearance, but a deliberate retreat, a culture evolving under the forest's protection. The most compelling evidence, however, comes from the land itself. Indigenous communities in the region have long spoken of Hatun Paititi, the Great Paititi, not as a mythical city, but as a real place their ancestors knew. Their oral histories describe trade routes that connected the Andes to the Amazon, with Inca outposts acting as way stations. This aligns with LiDAR data showing paths that stretch toward the mountains, hinting at a purposeful expansion into the lowlands. The Inca weren't just hiding, they were extending their reach, blending their highland expertise with the jungle's resources. So why hasn't Paititi been found? The answer lies in the Amazon's sheer vastness. Even with modern technology, less than 10% of the rainforest has been systematically surveyed. Every expedition faces a race against time, as logging and agriculture eat away at areas that might hold answers. But each discovery, however small, chips away at the myth, revealing a truth far richer. The Inca's story didn't end with the Spanish conquest. It simply moved, weaving itself into the endless green folds of the Amazon, waiting for us to listen. Off the coast of Brazil, where the Amazon River meets the Atlantic, lies an island of secrets, Marajó, a place that defies every stereotype of the primitive Amazon. Here, buried beneath the swampy grasslands, rise enormous earthen mounds, some towering over 20 feet high. These aren't natural formations, they're the handiwork of the Marajoara, a civilization whose artistry and engineering rivaled any of their time. Imagine a society that shaped the very earth beneath them, not just for survival, but for ceremony, status, and a connection to the unseen world. The Marajoara didn't leave behind stone temples or golden relics. Instead, their legacy is etched in clay, thousands of intricately designed ceramic urns, bowls, and figurines, each piece a masterpiece of form and symbolism. Their pottery wasn't merely functional, it was a language. Vessels adorned with geometric patterns, animal motifs, and human figures tell stories of cosmology, hierarchy, and daily life. Some designs mirror the Amazon's swirling rivers, while others depict mythic beings, blurring the line between art and spiritual expression. Archaeologists have unearthed burial urns so finely crafted, so rich in detail, that they suggest a society with specialized artisans, people who spent lifetimes honing their craft. But the true marvel of Marajó lies beneath the surface. Those massive mounds, often dismissed as simple refuse piles, are now recognized as deliberate constructions. Built layer by layer over centuries, they served as elevated platforms for homes, temples, and communal spaces, lifting the Marajoara above seasonal floods. Some mounds align with celestial events, hinting at an advanced understanding of astronomy. Others contain hidden chambers, their purposes still debated. Were they tombs, storage sites, or spaces for rituals lost to time? What's most striking is the scale of it all. At its peak, Marajó may have housed tens of thousands of people, with a social structure complex enough to organize labor for these colossal projects. Evidence of trade networks stretches far beyond the island, with Marajoara pottery found hundreds of miles inland. This wasn't an isolated culture, it was a hub, a vibrant node in a web of Amazonian civilizations that thrived long before Europe's so-called Age of Discovery. Yet by the time Europeans arrived in the 16th century, the mounds were already silent. The Marajoara had vanished, their disappearance as enigmatic as their rise. Some theories point to environmental shifts, rising waters, or depleted soils. Others suggest internal collapse or even the arrival of new peoples, but the silence of their mounds speaks volumes. Unlike the Inca or Maya, the Marajoara left no written records, no grand monuments to conquest. Their story is told in the curve of a clay vessel, the strata of a mound, the patience of earth shaped by human hands. Today, as researchers comb through layers of pottery and soil, a new narrative emerges. The Amazon wasn't just a backdrop for human history. It was a stage, and the Marajoara were among its most brilliant players. Their cities of clay challenge us to rethink what a lost civilization looks like, not just temples swallowed by jungle, but entire ways of life whispered through artifacts waiting for us to listen. Hidden beneath the lush vegetation of Peru's Amazon basin, an ancient mystery spirals upward from the earth Montegrand, a temple unlike any other in the rainforest. Its most striking feature, a massive coiled design, a stone and earth labyrinth rising in concentric circles like a fossilized whirlpool frozen in time. Discovered only in 2010, this structure isn't just a relic. It's a celestial compass, its curves aligning with the solstices and equinoxes with precision that suggests its builders possessed a sophisticated grasp of astronomy. Picture standing at its center during dawn on the summer solstice, watching sunlight slice through the jungle canopy to strike specific points along the spiral's path, a ritual encoded in architecture meant to mirror the cosmos. What sets Montegrand apart isn't just its shape, but its age. Radiocarbon dating places its construction around 3,000 years ago, making it a contemporary of Egypt's later pyramids and Greece's Mycenaean citadels. Yet here, in the heart of the Amazon, a culture we know almost nothing about was erecting monuments that married earth and sky. Fragments of ceramics and ceremonial objects found on-site hint at a society deeply intertwined with the spiritual and natural world. One recurring motif is the boa constrictor, its sinuous form echoing the temple's spiral, a clue, perhaps, that the builders saw this place as a bridge between realms where the earth's energy coiled like a serpent waiting to ascend. The challenges of uncovering Montegrand's secrets are as tangled as the roots enveloping its walls. Unlike arid desert ruins, the Amazon's humidity devours organic artifacts, leaving behind only the sturdiest pottery and stone. Excavations must battle not just the elements but the jungle's relentless reclamation. Within months of clearing a site, vegetation begins to reclaim it. Archaeologists work in a race against decay, their trowels scraping against time itself. Yet every carefully sifted layer reveals surprises, offerings of shells from distant rivers, traces of ceremonial fires, and even residues of hallucinogenic plants, suggesting Montegrand was a pilgrimage site where rituals altered perception to commune with the divine. Who were these temple builders? The absence of written records leaves us with only whispers. Some scholars link Montegrand to the little-known Casarabe culture, while others propose it was the work of a lost precursor civilization, one that influenced later Amazonian societies. Local indigenous stories speak of the Old Ones, a people who walked with the stars, tales that now take on new weight. The temple's alignment isn't just functional, it's philosophical, a statement that the sacred and the scientific were inseparable to its creators. In a rainforest often stereotyped as untamed, Monte Grande stands as proof of a different truth, that the Amazon's ancient peoples didn't just survive their environment. They revered it, studied it, and built their heavens into its very soil. Today, as researchers painstakingly map each stone, Monte Grande challenges our assumptions about pre-Columbian Amazonia. This wasn't a scattered collection of tribes, but a tapestry of cultures capable of grand vision. The spiral isn't merely a shape, it's a question, an invitation to rethink what we know about the jungle's past. And with every layer uncovered, the temple murmurs a reminder: some histories aren't lost, they're waiting, coiled in the earth, ready to rise. In the far western reaches of the Amazon, where Brazil's Acre state brushes against the borders of Bolivia and Peru, the earth itself holds secrets etched in shapes so vast they can only be seen from the sky. These are the Acre geoglyphs, over 400 geometric earthworks carved into the landscape, their perfect circles, squares, and octagons stretching up to 1,200 feet across. Unlike the towering pyramids of Mesoamerica or the stone temples of the Andes, these structures don't announce themselves with grandeur. They whisper, revealing their patterns only when the modern world accidentally strips away the jungle's veil. It was deforestation, of all things, that brought these hidden designs to light. As ranchers cleared land for cattle in the 1970s and 80s, pilots flying overhead began noticing strange, symmetrical trenches dotting the landscape below. At first, many assumed they were remnants of recent activity, abandoned roads or failed agricultural projects. But when archaeologists arrived, they made a startling discovery: these weren't modern scars. They were ancient masterpieces dating back over 2,000 years, built by a culture that reshaped the earth with startling precision. The sheer scale of the geoglyphs challenges everything we thought we knew about Amazonian societies. Constructing just one of these earthworks would have required moving thousands of tons of soil, a feat demanding not just labor, but sophisticated planning and communal coordination. Unlike the Marajoara mounds or Monte Grande spiral, these weren't elevated platforms or temples. Their purpose remains fiercely debated. Some researchers argue they were ceremonial enclosures, spaces for rituals where the boundaries between earth and sky dissolved. Others propose defensive functions, noting the deep trenches that could have served as barriers. But the most intriguing theory suggests they were part of an intricate agricultural system, their ditches managing water flow in a landscape prone to both floods and droughts. Clues lie in the details. Soil samples reveal layers of charcoal and pottery shards, hinting at sustained human activity. The geoglyphs often cluster near streams, their placements too deliberate to be random. And then there's the artistry, the way their shapes mirror constellations or align with solstice sunrises, suggesting celestial knowledge woven into the land. Indigenous oral histories from the region speak of ancestors who drew with the earth, crafting spaces where the physical and spiritual worlds intertwined. Yet the Acre geoglyphs also carry a sobering lesson. Their discovery via deforestation underscores a painful irony: we're only finding these wonders as they're threatened. Satellite imagery now reveals hundreds more earthworks still hidden beneath untouched forest, but illegal logging and agriculture advance daily. Each tree felled could unveil a new glyph or erase it forever. What's clear is this: the Amazon's past was never a blank canvas. From Kuhikugu's fish farms to Acre's geometric marvels, these landscapes were shaped by hands that saw potential in every river bend, every patch of soil. The geoglyphs don't just mark where people lived, they show how they thought, how they dreamed, how they turned the wilderness into a home. And as the jungle reluctantly yields its secrets, we're left to wonder how many more stories are waiting beneath the trees. The concept of Kuhikugu as a garden city shatters old myths of the Amazon as a place where humans merely survived. Instead, this sprawling network of settlements reveals a civilization that didn't just coexist with the jungle, it sculpted it. Imagine a metropolis without skyscrapers, where the buildings were the trees themselves, and the streets were ribbons of cultivated land woven seamlessly into the wild. Archaeologists studying the site have uncovered something extraordinary, a carefully choreographed landscape where orchards, fields, and forest merged into a single, sustainable system. This wasn't urban sprawl as we know it. It was a symphony of human ingenuity and natural abundance. At the heart of Kuhikugu's design was a principle modern cities are only now rediscovering: balance. Residential areas clustered around central plazas, but they were encircled by productive gardens growing everything from peach palms to Brazil nuts. Beyond these, the forest stood not as an enemy to be cleared, but as a managed resource. Pollen analysis shows the Kuhikugu selectively nurtured useful species while suppressing others, creating what scientists call an anthropogenic forest, a woodland shaped by human hands. Footpaths wound through this mosaic, connecting neighborhoods to fish farms and ceremonial sites without disrupting the ecology. It's a blueprint that makes today's concrete jungles look clumsy by comparison. The most striking evidence of this harmony lies beneath the soil. Core samples reveal layers of dark, fertile earth called Terra, Preta, human-made soil enriched with charcoal, pottery shards, and organic waste. These patches weren't accidental. They were deliberate enhancements, turning the Amazon's notoriously poor soils into productive farmland that still remains fertile centuries later. The Kuhikugu didn't just adapt to their environment, they improved it, leaving behind a legacy that literally rooted their civilization into the land. Yet what truly sets Kuhikugu apart is its defiance of categorization. It wasn't strictly urban or rural, but something in between, a prototype for a way of living that modern planners now call agro-urbanism. Recent LiDAR scans show how earthworks formed natural water reservoirs during rainy seasons, while canals distributed moisture during droughts. Fish swam from managed ponds into surrounding streams, creating a self-sustaining protein supply. Even the spacing of trees suggests deliberate planning, with fruit-bearing species planted to provide shade for crops below. This wasn't just survival, it was a masterclass in ecological design. The implications are profound. For decades, Western science dismissed the idea of complex Amazonian societies, arguing the environment couldn't support large populations. Kuhikugu turns that assumption on its head, proving the rainforest wasn't a barrier to civilization, it was the foundation. The Kuhikugu didn't conquer nature, they conversed with it, creating a society where the line between garden and city blurred into irrelevance. As modern cities grapple with climate change and resource scarcity, this ancient garden city offers a startling question. What if the future of urban life was hidden in the Amazon all along? The name Percy Fawcett still sends shivers down the spines of explorers. A man who vanished into the Amazon in 1925, chasing a dream that would consume his life. His obsession, the lost city of Z, a place he believed rivaled the grandeur of ancient Rome, hidden somewhere in Brazil's Mato Grosso. Fawcett wasn't just another adventurer. He was a seasoned cartographer, a British colonel who'd mapped uncharted regions of the Amazon with meticulous precision. But his final expedition, fueled by indigenous tales of stone cities and gold, ended in mystery. His last known dispatch spoke of impenetrable forest and strange ruins before he, his son Jack, and their companion Raleigh Rimmel disappeared without a trace. For decades, Fawcett's quest was dismissed as folly, the ramblings of a man driven mad by the jungle. But what if he wasn't entirely wrong? Recent discoveries in the Mato Grosso have unearthed startling evidence of large-scale earthworks and stone structures eerily similar to Fawcett's descriptions. Satellite surveys revealed geometric patterns beneath the canopy, rectangular mounds, causeways, and even what appear to be remnants of roads. These aren't the haphazard markings of nomadic tribes, they're the fingerprints of a society organized enough to reshape the landscape. One site in particular, known as Kuhikugu, not to be confused with Fawcett's Z, has drawn comparisons to his notes. Archaeologists found not just pottery and tools, but the foundations of plazas and wooden palisades, proof of a settlement far more complex than anyone imagined existing in the region. Even more compelling are the black earth patches Terra Preta that dot the area, suggesting intensive agriculture capable of sustaining thousands. Could this have been the inspiration for the legends Fawcett heard? Indigenous oral histories in the region speak of a time when the ancestors lived in great houses, a memory that aligns uncomfortably well with these ruins. Yet the real twist lies in Fawcett's own writings. He described a high city of stone with wide roads, details that seemed absurd in a rainforest where civilizations were thought to build only with wood and earth. But in 2018, LiDAR scans in the Mato Grosso revealed something astonishing. Clusters of elevated platforms and stone-lined paths, some stretching for miles. These weren't just trails, they were engineered highways connecting settlements across the jungle. The technology Fawcett lacked aerial imaging has now vindicated parts of his theory, if not his ultimate fate. The tragedy of Fawcett's story isn't just his disappearance. It's the fact that he may have been closer to the truth than his contemporaries ever admitted. Modern archaeology suggests the Amazon was dotted with cities of Z, not a single El Dorado, but a constellation of urban centers, each adapting to the rainforest in its own way. Fawcett's mistake wasn't believing in lost cities, it was underestimating how subtly they could hide. The jungle doesn't bury its secrets under pyramids. It lets roots and vines soften edges, turning stone into soil, roads into ridges. Today, as researchers peel back layers of dirt and doubt, Fawcett's ghost lingers. The man who sought a golden metropolis might never have imagined the real prize, proof that the Amazon's past was as complex as its ecosystem. His city of Z may remain lost, but in chasing it, he stumbled upon a truth far greater. A rainforest teeming with echoes of civilizations we're only beginning to hear. Scattered across the Amazon like dark fingerprints on a green canvas, Terra Preta, black earth tells a silent but revolutionary story. Unlike the jungle's naturally thin, nutrient-poor soils, these patches are rich, fertile, and unmistakably human-made. Walk through the rainforest today and you might stumble upon one. A swath of earth so dark it seems out of place, crumbly between your fingers, yet teeming with life centuries after its creators vanished. This isn't just dirt, it's archaeology. Each handful contains charcoal from ancient fires, pottery shards ground to dust, fish bones, and organic waste. The remnants of a civilization that didn't just live in the Amazon but transformed it. The secret to Terra Preta's resilience lies in its recipe. Indigenous peoples mixed charcoal, a byproduct of controlled burns known as slash and char, with compost, manure, and broken ceramics. The charcoal acted like a sponge, locking in nutrients and moisture, while the pottery fragments improved soil structure, preventing erosion. This wasn't accidental enrichment, it was deliberate engineering, a technology so advanced that modern scientists struggle to replicate it fully. In lab tests, Terra Preta outproduces nearby soils by staggering margins. Some plots yield 3 times more crops, even without modern fertilizers. The real magic. It regenerates. Unlike depleted farmland elsewhere, these patches remain fertile for thousands of years, a self-sustaining legacy of indigenous ingenuity. What's truly astonishing is the scale. Terra Preta isn't confined to a few garden plots. It covers up to 10% of the Amazon basin, with some individual patches spanning hundreds of acres. These aren't the traces of small, nomadic tribes, they're the calling cards of dense, settled populations. Near the Tapajos River, researchers found Terra Preta layers over 6 feet deep, suggesting centuries of continuous habitation. Satellite imagery reveals these fertile zones often cluster around the ruins of ancient settlements, linking them directly to places like Kuhikugu and the geoglyph building cultures. The message is clear: where Terra Preta appears, a city once thrived, but the implications go beyond archaeology. These soil systems reveal a blueprint for sustainable living in fragile ecosystems. The Amazon's ancient inhabitants didn't practice slash and burn agriculture as once assumed. They perfected slash and char, a method that enriched the land rather than depleting it. They understood something modern agribusiness is only now grasping. Fertility isn't about extraction but reciprocity. Today, scientists study Terra Preta as a potential solution to global soil degradation, while indigenous communities in Brazil revive these techniques to combat deforestation. The darkest earth holds the brightest lesson. The Amazon wasn't a wilderness tamed by outsiders. It was a managed landscape shaped by hands that saw the forest not as an obstacle but as a partner. Every patch of Terra Preta whispers the same truth: the greatest cities aren't always made of stone. Some are built from soil, patience, and the wisdom to leave the land richer than you found it. In the northern reaches of the Brazilian Amazon, where the rainforest meets the savannas of Amapá, a ring of towering stones rises from the earth like the remnants of an ancient conversation with the cosmos. This is calcone, better known as the Amazonian Stonehenge, a megalithic observatory whose precise alignments whisper of a forgotten civilization's mastery over the heavens. Unlike the moss-covered ruins we've encountered so far, these stones stand bare under the equatorial sun, their surfaces pocked by centuries of rain yet still bearing silent witness to celestial secrets. The structure consists of 127 granite blocks, some reaching over 9 feet tall, arranged in a perfect circle spanning nearly 100 feet across. But calcone's true genius lies in its orientation. During the December solstice, the shortest day of the year in the southern hemisphere, the sun aligns precisely with one of the stones, casting a shadow that bisects the circle with razor-sharp accuracy. Archaeoastronomers have confirmed similar alignments for the June solstice and equinoxes, proving this wasn't a random arrangement. These stones were a calendar, a temple, and perhaps even a cosmic compass, all carved by hands that understood the sky's rhythms long before modern tools could measure them. Who were these sky watchers? Evidence suggests they belonged to a pre-Columbian culture that thrived here between 500 and 2,000 years ago, though their name has been lost to time. Pottery shards and burial urns found nearby hint at a people who blended celestial worship with daily life. Unlike the Maya or Inca, they left no written records, but their stones speak volumes. The precision of calcone's alignments rivals Europe's Neolithic monuments, challenging the old narrative that the Amazon's cultures lacked astronomical sophistication. One theory points to the ancestors of the Palakar people, whose oral histories tell of star priests who used standing stones to predict seasons and guide planting. Modern Palakar elders still refer to the site as Kuhikugu, the place of the first sky. Another clue lies in the stones themselves. Geological analysis reveals they weren't quarried locally but transported from over 12 miles away, a logistical feat requiring communal effort and centralized leadership. This wasn't just a tribal shrine, it was the project of a society organized enough to mobilize labor for grand ambitions. Yet calcone's greatest mystery isn't how it was built but why. Unlike European megaliths often linked to agrarian cycles, this circle sits deep in a region where seasonal changes are subtle. Some researchers propose it tracked flood patterns of the nearby Calcone River, vital for fishing and transportation. Others believe it marked ceremonies tied to celestial events, with the stones acting as conduits between earth and sky. The most tantalizing theory suggests the site was a meeting point for disparate Amazonian cultures, a neutral ground where knowledge exchanged hands under the solstice sun. What's undeniable is the message these weathered stones carry: that the Amazon's ancient peoples didn't merely survive beneath the canopy. They looked beyond it, plotting their place in the universe with the same precision as any old-world civilization. Calzone doesn't just mirror Stonehenge, it upstages it in one crucial way. While Europe's megaliths stand isolated in open landscapes, these stones rise from the jungle itself, a testament to human curiosity flourishing even in the Earth's densest wilds. And as the solstice sun still finds its mark each year, the Amazonian Stonehenge reminds us, some truths are written not in books but in stone and shadow. Beneath the dense canopy of Bolivia's Llanos de Mojos, where the Amazon's wetlands stretch into the horizon, lies a revelation that rewrites the story of the rainforest, 1,200 square miles of hidden urban sprawl, etched into the earth by the Casarabe culture. Until recently, the idea of sprawling cities in this region seemed impossible. The Amazon's acidic soils and relentless floods were thought to preclude large-scale settlements. But then came LiDAR light detection and ranging technology that strips away the jungle's veil, revealing geometric precision where archaeologists once saw only wilderness. What it uncovered was staggering, not just isolated villages, but an entire network of interconnected cities, complete with tiered pyramids, raised causeways, and intricate waterways. A civilization that thrived here between 500 and 1,400 years ago. The scale of these settlements shatters old assumptions. One site, known as Kotoka, spans over 50 acres, its central pyramid towering 50 feet above the floodplains. Surrounding it are concentric rings of moats and ramparts, a design that speaks of both defense and ceremonial grandeur. But the real marvel lies in the infrastructure. Causeways, some stretching over 4 miles, connect Kotoka to smaller satellite towns in straight lines, evidence of centralized planning and labor mobilization. These weren't dirt paths, they were engineered roads elevated to withstand seasonal floods, flanked by canals that managed water flow with almost modern sophistication. Even more striking is how the Casarabe transformed their environment. The LiDAR maps show grids of raised fields, artificial islands of fertile soil where crops like maize, squash, and cassava grew abundantly. Fish farms dotted the landscape, their trapezoidal shapes echoing the same geometric precision as the pyramids. This wasn't just adaptation, it was domination. The Casarabe didn't merely survive the Amazon's challenges, they redesigned them, turning a wetland into a breadbasket. What truly sets this culture apart, though, is their urban vision. Unlike the compact, vertical cities of the Andes, the Casarabe built wide, integrating nature into their architecture. Plazas were lined with fruit trees, and reservoirs doubled as ceremonial spaces, blending utility with spirituality. The LiDAR images even reveal what might be ball courts, suggesting cultural exchanges with distant Mesoamerican societies. Yet the most haunting question isn't how they built these cities, it's why they vanished. Some theories point to climate shifts or resource depletion, but the Casarabe's engineering suggests they were masters of resilience. Could external forces like the arrival of new peoples have disrupted their balance? Or did their own success, their sprawling urban footprint, become unsustainable? The Casarabe's legacy forces us to reconsider the Amazon's past. This wasn't a wild frontier but a heartland of innovation, where cultures rose to the rainforest's challenges with creativity and scale. Their cities, hidden for centuries, are a testament to human ingenuity and a humbling reminder of how much history still lies buried, waiting for the light to find it. High above the winding rivers of Brazil's Upper Xingu region, the earth still bears the scars of an ancient arms race. Here, where the forest thins into patches of savanna, concentric rings of trenches and towering wooden palisades encircle long-abandoned villages, silent witnesses to a time when these settlements weren't just homes but fortresses. These aren't the haphazard defenses of a people living in fear. They're the deliberate architecture of societies that mastered the art of war long before European swords crossed the Atlantic. What makes these villages extraordinary is their precision. Unlike the scattered ruins found elsewhere in the Amazon, the Upper Xingu settlements form an interconnected defensive network, with some moats stretching over 6 feet deep and palisade walls reaching heights that would have made scaling them a deadly gamble. Archaeologists have mapped over 20 such sites, each strategically positioned to control access to rivers and fertile land. The message is clear: this was a landscape where conflict wasn't just occasional, it was baked into the fabric of daily life. Yet the real story lies in how these fortifications mirror the oral histories still told by the Xinguano people today. Elders speak of the Ikpeng, a warrior society that once dominated the region, launching raids under cover of darkness. They describe wars of the plaza, where rival villages clashed in ritualized battles over resources and prestige. For generations, these accounts were dismissed as myth until ground-penetrating radar revealed something startling. The locations of ancient palisades align almost perfectly with the boundaries described in Xinguano stories, as if the earth itself confirmed their truth. The sophistication of these defenses speaks volumes. Some villages feature multiple moats not just for thwarting attackers, but for channeling them into kill zones where defenders could rain down projectiles. Others have baffle gates, a maze-like entrance designed to slow invaders. But perhaps most telling are the artifacts found within these walls. Weapons, yes, but also ceremonial masks depicting snarling jaguars and coiled serpents. War wasn't just a necessity here, it was a cultural force woven into identity and spirituality. Modern excavations have uncovered something even more surprising. These villages weren't just fortresses. They were hubs of diplomacy. Beneath layers of ash and pottery, archaeologists found trade goods from distant regions, obsidian from the Andes, shells from the Atlantic coast. This suggests that between conflicts, the Xinguano people maintained alliances and exchanged networks. Their world wasn't one of endless war, but of complex cycles of competition and cooperation, where a village might be an enemy one season and a trading partner the next. What happened to these fortified communities? The answer might lie in the arrival of Europeans, not through direct contact, but through the waves of disease and displacement they unleashed. As smallpox and measles swept ahead of conquistadors, populations collapsed, making large-scale defenses unnecessary. The Xinguano people adapted, transitioning to smaller, more mobile settlements. But the echoes of their martial past remain, etched into the land and whispered in stories. Today, these ruins challenge the stereotype of the Amazon as a place of harmony with nature. The Upper Xingu's fortified villages reveal a different truth: that the rainforest's ancient peoples weren't just stewards of the environment, but shapers of history, capable of both breathtaking artistry and calculated warfare. Their legacy isn't just in the moats and palisades, but in the unbroken thread of memory that still ties their descendants to this contested, sacred ground. Deep in the impenetrable jungles of Honduras, where the Mosquitia rainforest swallows all but the most determined explorers, legend speaks of a place called La Ciudad Blanca, the White City. For centuries, this fabled ruin was dismissed as mere myth, a whispered tale of gleaming temples hidden beneath vines, waiting for the world to rediscover them. Indigenous stories describe it as the City of the Monkey God, a sacred place where an ancient civilization once thrived, only to vanish without a trace. Even famed adventurers like Theodore Maud claim to have found it in the 1940s, returning with artifacts and wild tales of golden idols. But the jungle kept its secret and the truth remained buried. That is, until modern technology finally pried open the rainforest's grip. In 2012, a team using LiDAR, light detection and ranging, made a discovery that sent shockwaves through archaeology. The scans revealed not just one isolated ruin, but an entire metropolis, its geometric layouts clear beneath the canopy. Plazas stretched over a mile long, pyramids rose where only trees should stand, and terraces hinted at a society that sculpted the land with purpose. This wasn't just a city, it was a lost world, untouched for centuries, its architecture frozen in time. The architecture alone rewrites history. Unlike the stone pyramids of the Maya, the White City's structures were built from a mysterious white stone or plaster, giving rise to its legendary name. Preliminary excavations uncovered intricate stone vessels, ceremonial seats carved with animal motifs, and a cache of artifacts untouched by looters, a rarity in a region where treasure hunters have picked over most known sites. One chilling find was a half-buried effigy of a jaguar, a creature blending human and beast, its snarling face a testament to the spiritual beliefs of its creators. But the real enigma is the people behind it all. Who built this city? No written records survive, but the craftsmanship points to a culture with ties to Mesoamerica, yet distinct from its neighbors. Some scholars speculate it was home to the Pech or Tawaka ancestors, while others see influences from the mysterious Isthmo-Colombian civilizations that bridged North and South America. The city's abandonment is another puzzle. Unlike settlements ravaged by conquest, La Ciudad Blanca shows no signs of violent destruction. Instead, it seems to have been deliberately left behind, a sacred place surrendered to the jungle, its people vanishing into myth. The most haunting question isn't about the past, but the future. The Mosquitia remains one of the most remote and unexplored places on Earth. Its rainforest so dense that ground teams can spend weeks hacking through vegetation just to reach a single ruin. Looters and logging threaten what LiDAR has only begun to reveal. Every artifact extracted, every tree felled, risks erasing clues to a civilization we're just beginning to understand. La Ciudad Blanca's greatest lesson might be this: some legends aren't fantasies. They're memories waiting for the right moment to step back into the light. And as the jungle reluctantly loosens its grip, we're left to wonder how many more white cities lie hidden, their stories still untold. Along the winding curves of the Tapajos River, where the water mirrors the jungle's endless green, the earth hides the bones of a civilization that mastered the art of living with the river, not against it. These weren't just villages clinging to the banks, they were the Amazon's version of Venice, a network of garden cities that turned seasonal floods into an advantage. Imagine streets that became canals during the rainy season, plazas designed to drain rather than drown, and homes built on mounds so precisely engineered they still stand centuries after their builders vanished. This was the world of the Tapajo people, a culture whose genius lay in bending the river's moods to their will. What sets these settlements apart is their sheer density. While European explorers later described the Amazon as empty, modern archaeology reveals the opposite: towns with populations rivaling medieval European cities, all thriving along the Tapajos. LiDAR scans have uncovered grids of raised platforms stretching for miles, connected by causeways that doubled as dikes during floods. At the heart of each cluster stood ceremonial centers adorned with intricate pottery, some vessels towering over 5 feet tall, their surfaces etched with geometric patterns that may have served as maps of the cosmos or blueprints for the cities themselves. The Tapajo didn't just adapt to their riverine world, they celebrated it. Excavations have unearthed fishing gear weighted with polished stones, nets woven from jungle fibers, and harpoons tipped with stingray spines, tools so effective they're still used by local fishermen today. But the real surprise came when scientists analyzed soil samples. Beneath the forest floor, they found layers of broken ceramics so thick they formed artificial reefs, creating habitats for fish that the Tapajo then harvested. This wasn't just waste, it was aquaculture centuries ahead of its time. Trade flowed as freely as the river itself. Tapajo pottery, with its distinctive ochre paints and polished finishes, has been found hundreds of miles upstream, while obsidian from the Andes and seashells from the Atlantic turned up in their middens. These weren't random exchanges, they were the workings of a sophisticated economy. The river served as a liquid highway with dugout canoes, some large enough to carry 20 people, ferrying goods, ideas, and even marriage partners between settlements. Yet the most striking legacy of the Tapajos lies in their gardens. Unlike the slash-and-burn techniques often associated with the Amazon, these people practiced something closer to permaculture. They enriched patches of forest with Terra Preta, planting fruit trees, medicinal herbs, and crops like manioc in symbiotic clusters that mimicked natural ecosystems. Satellite imagery shows these garden zones radiating from settlements like spokes on a wheel, feeding thousands without depleting the soil. What happened to these riverine innovators? Clues point to a slow unraveling. European contact brought disease, but also disruption. Trade networks collapsed when metal tools replaced stone, and mission settlements pulled people from their ancestral land. Yet the Tapajos' fingerprints linger. Modern communities along the river still use their fishing techniques, tend their ancient groves of Brazil nut trees, and whisper names for places that archaeology is only now rediscovering. The lesson of the Tapajos is clear. The Amazon wasn't a wilderness waiting to be tamed. It was a canvas, and its people, like the Tapajos, were artists, painting civilizations in strokes of pottery, earth, and water. Their cities may be lost, but their wisdom floats on, carried by the river that shaped them. The Beni region of Bolivia unfolds like a vast, watery puzzle, a flat savanna prone to months of flooding, where nature seems to discourage permanent settlement. Yet hidden beneath the grasslands are the fingerprints of a forgotten civilization, the Earth Builders, who didn't just survive this challenging landscape but sculpted it into something extraordinary. Their legacy, thousands of artificial mounds known as lomas, some rising over 30 feet high, dotting the horizon like the backbones of buried giants. These aren't random heaps of dirt, they're the foundation of a society that turned flooding from a threat into a lifeline. What makes the lomas so ingenious is their dual purpose. During the rainy season, when the Beni transforms into an inland sea, these mounds became islands, dry refuges for homes, gardens, and even orchards. But when the waters receded, the real magic unfolded. The Earth Builders dug intricate networks of canals between the mounds, creating a grid of productive wetlands. Fish swam into these channels during high water, becoming trapped as the levels dropped, providing a ready-made harvest. The nutrient-rich silt left behind fertilized crops like maize and squash, while the mounds themselves, built from layered organic material, acted like slow-release compost. This wasn't just farming, it was a symphony of hydrology and agriculture, a system so efficient it sustained populations for centuries. The scale of this transformation is staggering. Satellite imagery reveals over 20,000 lomas across the Beni, connected by causeways that stretch for miles in dead straight lines. Some mounds cluster in geometric patterns, suggesting ceremonial centers or elite residences, while others form sprawling grids that mirror modern agricultural plots. The sheer labor involved speaks to a highly organized society, moving millions of cubic feet of earth without beasts of burden or metal tools. But the Earth Builders' sophistication didn't stop there. Recent studies show they even engineered the lomas to maximize microclimates, with taller mounds hosting drought-resistant plants and lower ones favoring moisture-loving species. Yet the most haunting question isn't how they built this system, it's why it vanished. Unlike other Amazonian civilizations that may have collapsed due to European contact, the lomas were abandoned centuries before Columbus sailed. Some researchers point to prolonged droughts that disrupted the careful balance of water and land. Others suspect political upheaval or resource shifts. But the Earth Builders left something behind, their legacy in the land itself. Modern ranchers in the Beni still use the lomas as dry season pastures, unknowingly walking in the footsteps of the people who first tamed this watery world. The real marvel of the lomas isn't just their engineering, it's their philosophy. These Earth Builders didn't conquer nature, they listened to it, designing a civilization that ebbed and flowed with the seasons. In a world grappling with climate change, their mounds stand as silent mentors, reminding us that sometimes survival isn't about fighting the elements but dancing with them. Tucked away in the rugged cliffs of northeastern Brazil, far from the Amazon's dense rainforest yet still part of its ancient cultural tapestry, the cave paintings of Serra do Capivara blaze with color and controversy. These aren't just fleeting sketches, they're a sprawling gallery of human history, with over 30,000 individual images stretching across 800 archaeological sites. Jaguars leap in ochre and charcoal, hunters brandish spears, and ritual dancers twist in vibrant procession a frozen moment of lives lived tens of thousands of years ago. But the real shock isn't the art itself. It's the staggering possibility that humans inhabited this region far earlier than science once thought possible. The debate over these paintings' age hinges on a single revolutionary claim. Some researchers date them to 25,000 years old, a time frame that would upend our understanding of human migration into the Americas. Traditional theories hold that humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia around 13,000 years ago. Yet if the dating techniques at Serra do Capivara, including thermoluminescence testing of nearby hearths, are accurate, they suggest a radical alternative, that people thrived here long before the last ice age's glaciers retreated. Skeptics argue that the dating methods could be flawed, or that natural processes might have distorted the results, but the paintings themselves offer tantalizing clues. Some layers depict long-extinct megafauna like giant ground sloths, animals that vanished millennia before the accepted timeline of human arrival. Could these images be eyewitness accounts, not just myths passed down? Beyond their age, the paintings are a window into the minds of their creators. Unlike the abstract symbols found in European caves, Serra do Capivara's art pulses with narrative. Scenes of communal hunts, childbirth, and even astronomical events suggest a society deeply attuned to both survival and spirituality. One remarkable panel shows a figure with outstretched arms, surrounded by concentric circles, possibly a shaman mediating between earth and sky. Another depicts a procession of antlered figures, their bodies bent in what might be a ritual dance or a celestial ceremony. The colors, still vivid after thousands of years, were mixed from minerals and plant dyes, applied with brushes made from fibrous plants or even human hair. The artist's choice of location adds another layer of mystery. Many paintings cluster in sheltered overhangs at the base of cliffs, places that would have been ideal for communal gatherings. But others hide in nearly inaccessible crevices, as if meant for secret rites or initiation ceremonies. Archaeologist Need Guidon, who dedicated her life to studying the site, believed these were more than just shelters, they were sacred spaces where stories and knowledge were transmitted across generations. The sheer volume of art suggests this wasn't a transient camp, but a cultural hub, a place where people returned season after season, century after century, leaving their mark on the stone. What happened to these artists? Unlike the Amazon's later civilizations, which left behind pottery and earthworks, the people of Serra do Capivara vanished into time, leaving only their painted echoes. Some scholars speculate that climatic shifts turned the region from fertile savanna into semi-arid scrub, dispersing populations toward the Amazon basin. Others suggest their descendants may have merged with later migrations, their stories woven into the myths of indigenous tribes like the Tupi or the Carajá. The greatest lesson of Serra do Capivara isn't just about who painted these walls, it's about what they force us to reconsider. If humans thrived here so long ago, what other chapters of history remain buried? The caves don't just challenge timelines, they remind us that the Americas' first narratives weren't written in stone or clay, but in pigment and memory. And as the debate over their age rages on, the paintings themselves remain silent, their colors undimmed, waiting for us to decipher the stories they've held for millennia. In the quiet corners of Brazil's Amapá state, where the Amazon meets the Atlantic, the Marajó people left behind a mystery etched in earth villages shaped like perfect circles, their curves mirroring the cosmos above. These aren't just clusters of homes, they're architectural poems, each ring a stanza in a story of harmony between humans and the heavens. Excavations reveal that these circular settlements, some spanning over 300 feet in diameter, were meticulously planned, with homes arranged in concentric rings around a central plaza, a design that didn't just house the living but mapped their universe. At the heart of every Marajó village stood the Casarabe, a sacred communal space where ceremonies unfolded under the open sky. This wasn't arbitrary geography, it was cosmology in dirt and timber. The inner ring, reserved for chiefs and shamans, symbolized the celestial dome, while outer rings radiated outward like the layers of creation itself. Even the positioning of doorways followed celestial logic, many aligned with solstice sunrises or the rise of Orion's belt, turning entire villages into slow-moving clocks tracking the passage of seasons. The Marajó's social structure mirrored this circular harmony. Unlike hierarchical societies with rigid class divides, their world was one of balance. Elders and leaders occupied the center, not as rulers but as stewards, mediating between the physical and spiritual realms. Families lived in the outer rings, their homes equal in size and status, reflecting a shared responsibility for the community's well-being. Archaeologists have found no evidence of palisades or defensive walls. These were people who prioritized unity over fortification, their safety lying in cohesion rather than conflict. What's most striking is how these villages functioned as living calendars. Post holes and hearth remnants suggest that certain structures were rebuilt or repositioned cyclically, aligning with agricultural or ceremonial cycles. The central plazas, often paved with crushed shells or pottery shards, bore traces of massive feasts likely tied to harvests or celestial events. Imagine the scene, hundreds gathering under the stars, dancing atop floors that shimmered like the Milky Way, their movements echoing the orbits above. Yet the Marajó's legacy isn't just in their layouts. Their pottery, adorned with spirals and radial motifs, echoes the village designs as if every bowl and urn was a miniature model of their worldview. Some vessels depict stylized jaguars or serpents coiled in circles, symbols of cyclical time and rebirth. Even their graves follow the pattern, with bodies buried in fetal positions facing east, as if awaiting a new dawn in the great cycle of existence. Why did these circular villages vanish? The answer may lie in the land itself. Soil analyses show that the Marajó practiced a form of rotational agriculture, moving villages every few generations to allow the earth to renew. Over time, as outside pressures from neighboring tribes or environmental shifts intensified, this migratory rhythm may have fractured, but the influence of their design lingers. Modern indigenous groups like the Akakor still speak of the old circle people, and their own village layouts occasionally echo the Marajó's sacred geometry. To walk the ghostly rings of a Marajó village today is to step into a blueprint of belief. These circles weren't just shelters, they were classrooms, calendars, and cathedrals, all woven into one. They remind us that for some, home was never just a place to live. It was a mirror held up to the cosmos, a reminder that every life, like every orbit, is part of a greater whole. The Amazon's deepest shadows hold more than ruins, they shelter living echoes of the past. Among the tangled vines and riverbanks, tribes like the Mashco Pyro move unseen, their existence a fragile thread connecting our world to the civilizations we've spent this journey uncovering. Unlike the abandoned cities we've explored, these communities aren't relics. They're vibrant cultures preserving ways of life that have endured for millennia. Their choice to remain isolated isn't an accident of geography, it's a deliberate defiance of the modern world, a testament to resilience that mirrors the stories etched in the Terra Preta and stone circles we've encountered. Yet their isolation sparks one of the most fraught ethical dilemmas of our time. On one hand, anthropologists and indigenous rights advocates argue that uncontacted tribes possess an inalienable right to sovereignty over their land and lives. After centuries of disease, displacement, and violence brought by outsiders, their wariness is more than justified. The tragic history of the Amazon is littered with cultures decimated by first contact like the Akuntsu, reduced to a handful of survivors after illegal ranchers massacred their people in the 1980s. When outsiders encroach, even with good intentions, the results can be catastrophic. A simple cold to which these tribes have no immunity can wipe out entire families in days. On the other side lies an almost irresistible pull toward understanding. The Mashko Pyro and tribes like them hold knowledge that could rewrite textbooks, medicinal plants unknown to science, navigation techniques perfected over generations, oral histories that might shed light on the very ruins we've been exploring. There's also the humanitarian argument. As logging, mining, and climate change shrink their territories, some argue that controlled contact could offer protection. But this perspective risks repeating colonialism's oldest lie, that intervention is always benevolent, always necessary. The tension between these views plays out in real time. In 2022, drone footage captured Mashko Pyro members watching from the riverbank as a research boat passed, a moment both haunting and humbling. They're not lost, they're hiding, and their choice to do so forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about exploration's true cost. Are we documenting history or becoming the threat future archaeologists will puzzle over? Perhaps the most poignant lesson lies in what these tribes share with the vanished cultures we've studied. Like the Marajoara or the Earth Builders, they've mastered their environment in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. Their very existence challenges the myth that the Amazon was ever untouched. It was and is a place of deep human ingenuity. The difference is that these communities still walk the forest, still tend the same soils their ancestors enriched centuries ago. In the end, their isolation isn't just a boundary, it's a mirror. How we respond to their presence says less about them than about us. Do we see a living library to be opened or a right to be respected? The ruins of the Amazon whisper that civilizations rise and fall, but choices echo forever. The uncontacted tribes aren't lost, they're waiting for us to decide whether we're worthy of finding them. Beneath the churning brown waters of the Amazon River, where sediment swirls like liquid memory, whispers persist of cities swallowed by floods, entire civilizations drowned beneath the weight of rising currents. These aren't just campfire tales, they're threads woven into the fabric of indigenous stories across the basin, from the Tucuna's legends of a great deluge to the Kayapo's oral histories describing stone houses under the river. Modern technology is now plunging into these murky depths, revealing sonar anomalies that defy easy explanation. Angular shapes too precise for nature, linear formations stretching like drowned roads, and what some researchers believe could be the remnants of monumental architecture lost to time. The most tantalizing clues come from the riverbed itself. Near the confluence of the Amazon and Rio Negro, side-scan sonar has detected massive, geometric structures submerged under 30 feet of water. One anomaly spans nearly 2 football fields, its edges unnaturally straight, with what appear to be stepped platforms, features eerily reminiscent of terrestrial pyramids found elsewhere in the Amazon. Sediment cores extracted nearby contain charcoal layers and pottery fragments, suggesting human activity predating the river's rise. Could these be the bones of a city claimed by the water? Some scholars think so, pointing to climatic shifts around 5,000 years ago, when rising sea levels forced the Amazon to swell, drowning low-lying settlements in a slow-motion catastrophe. Indigenous stories amplify these findings. The Decipher people speak of a time when the rivers were smaller, and villages thrived where catfish now swim. Their creation myths describe a serpent god who unleashed floods to punish humanity, sinking grand settlements beneath the waves. Similarly, the Munduruku recount tales of the old ones who built with stone along the riverbanks only to vanish when the waters swallowed the land whole. These narratives, once dismissed as allegory, now take on new weight as archaeologists uncover evidence of ancient shoreline settlements far from modern rivers, proof that the Amazon's waterways have shifted dramatically over millennia. But the most compelling evidence may lie in the Amazon's own geology. During droughts, when water levels drop unusually low, locals have reported glimpses of what lie beneath, stone circles peeking above the receding currents, arranged in patterns that mirror known ceremonial sites. In 2019, a fisherman near Manaus stumbled upon a cluster of carved rocks during a historic dry spell, their surfaces etched with spirals and animal motifs unlike any documented in the region. Before archaeologists could document them, the rains returned and the river reclaimed its secrets. Skeptics argue these anomalies could be natural formations or remnants of more recent structures. Yet the sheer volume of coincidences, sonar hits matching flood myths, pottery in underwater sediment layers, drought-exposed artifacts paints a picture that's hard to ignore. If even a fraction of these whispers hold truth, the Amazon's greatest archaeological treasures might not lie in the jungle's embrace, but beneath its dark waters, waiting for the right technology or the right drought to reveal them fully. What's haunting isn't just the possibility of lost cities, but the realization that the Amazon's past may be far more fluid than we ever imagined. Rivers that shift over centuries don't just erase landscapes, they rewrite history. And as climate change brings more extreme droughts and floods, the river may yet decide to share more of its secrets or bury them deeper forever. High in the cloud forests of northern Peru, where mist clings to the mountains like a secret, the legend of Gran Sapasoa has taunted treasure hunters and archaeologists for centuries. This was no ordinary lost city. It was a fortress of gold, or so the stories claimed, built by the Chachapoya people, the warriors of the clouds. Spanish chronicles from the 16th century spoke of a mountain stronghold so rich that its temples gleamed with golden ornaments, its warriors adorned with precious metals. But was Gran Sapasoa real, or just another El Dorado-style myth spun from greed and wishful thinking? The answer, like the city itself, is shrouded in layers of fog and folklore. Expeditions into the remote Utcubamba Valley have uncovered tantalizing clues. In the early 2000s, a team led by explorer Jean Savoy, the same man who rediscovered the Inca site of Vilcabamba, pushed through dense vegetation to find massive stone walls snaking along ridgetops. These weren't random rubble piles, they were defensive fortifications, some stretching over 15 feet high, with staggered entryways designed to funnel attackers into deadly choke points. Nearby, circular foundations hinted at watchtowers or signal stations, part of a network that could relay messages across the mountains with smoke or reflected light. The architecture screamed Chachapoya, a culture known for their hilltop citadels and resistance to Inca rule. Then came the artifacts. Local farmers guided researchers to secluded caves where they'd found pottery shards etched with intricate geometric patterns, unmistakably Chachapoya in design. More startling were the reports of metalwork, not gold, but copper and bronze ornaments, tools, and even fragments of armor. These finds suggested a society with metallurgical skills far beyond simple village life. But the real bombshell came when ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies beneath a site called Cerro Los Cruces, buried chambers, their contents unknown. Could these be the storied treasure vaults, or something even more valuable, tombs holding the answers to who the Chachapoya really were? The challenges of verifying Gran Sapasoa's legends are as steep as the mountains hiding it. Unlike lowland ruins, these sites cling to vertiginous slopes where landslides and erosion have scattered evidence. The cloud forest's perpetual dampness rots organic materials, leaving only stone and metal to tell the tale. And then there's the gold question. No substantial hoards have been found, leading skeptics to argue that Spanish accounts exaggerated or conflated Gran Sapasoa with other Chachapoya sites like Cuelap. But indigenous oral histories keep the hope alive. Elders in nearby villages speak of a place of the golden sun, a sanctuary where their ancestors hid sacred objects from Inca and Spanish looters. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between myth and reality. The Chachapoya were master strategists. If they had gold, they'd have buried it well. Their cities weren't just homes, they were fortresses designed to disappear into the landscape when threatened. Gran Sapasoa's greatest treasure might not be metal, but the story it tells of a people who refused to be conquered, who built their refuges in the sky and dared the world to find them. Every crumbling wall, every buried artifact whispers the same challenge. The jungle keeps what it takes, and sometimes the search itself is the real discovery. The Rio Negro winds like a dark serpent through the heart of the Amazon, its Inca waters hiding a secret written not in stone or gold, but in something far more enduring: soil. Along its banks, patches of jet-black earth stand in stark contrast to the surrounding rust-colored ground. These are the Terra Preta sites, but not the scattered garden plots we've seen elsewhere. Here, the deposits stretch for acres, so deep and extensive they form the literal foundation of what archaeologists now believe were bustling urban centers. This isn't just fertile ground, it's the fingerprint of the Manaus culture, a society that turned the Rio Negro's floodplains into the backbone of a forgotten trade empire. What makes these dark earth cities unique is their sheer scale. Near modern-day Manaus, excavations have uncovered terra preta layers up to 6 feet thick, mixed with pottery so abundant it forms artificial reefs in the soil. These aren't mere village middens, they're the accumulated residues of centuries of concentrated human activity. Imagine towering longhouses built atop these nutrient-rich platforms, their wooden frames long since rotted away, leaving only the darkened earth as proof they ever existed. The Manaus people didn't just live here, they engineered their landscape down to the molecular level, crafting soils that could sustain populations dense enough to qualify as urban by pre-Columbian standards. The real revelation lies in what these sites traded. Unlike the gold and jade that obsessed European explorers, the Manaus culture's wealth flowed in subtler forms. Chemical analysis of pottery shards reveals residues of toxic manioca, proof they mass-processed the root into farinha, a staple flour that could be stored and traded. Other vessels bear traces of cacao and rare spices, suggesting a culinary network stretching far beyond the Rio Negro. Most telling are the grinding stones found in clusters near the riverbank, their surfaces worn smooth from pulsing seeds into pigment, likely the vibrant red annatto dye coveted across the Amazon for body paint and ritual. This wasn't just a collection of villages, it was a factory city humming with specialized labor, but the Manaus culture's true genius lay in their waterways. The Rio Negro's unique blackwater chemistry, acidic and nutrient-poor, makes it notoriously hostile to conventional farming, yet the Manaus people turned this liability into an advantage. Their terra preta acted like a sponge, neutralizing the water's acidity and creating floating gardens along seasonal floodplains. Satellite imagery shows ancient canals radiating from dark earth sites, some leading to artificial ponds where archaeologists suspect they farmed turtles and giant pirarucu fish. These weren't just food sources, they were living larders, protein reserves that could be harvested year-round and smoked for trade. The scope of their influence becomes clear when you trace the artifacts. Manaus-style pottery appears over 200 miles upstream, mixed with Andes-sourced obsidian in distant settlements. One theory posits they controlled a blackwater highway, using their specialized canoes crafted from buoyant sumama wood to navigate tributaries too acidic for rival traders. Indigenous oral histories hint at this legacy, with Tucano elders recounting tales of the Black River people who brought strange fruits and painted cloth from the north. Even today, riverine communities unconsciously echo Manaus techniques, planting their cassava in the nutrient-rich spoil from termite mounds, a distant cousin of Terra Preta's alchemy. Why did these dark earth cities fade? The answer may lie in the soil itself. Unlike the self-regenerating Terra Preta of other regions, Rio Negro's deposits show signs of overexploitation layers where pottery fragments abruptly outnumber organic matter. Coupled with sediment cores indicating a prolonged drought around 600 years ago, it paints a picture of a society that pressed its advantage too far. Yet their legacy lingers. Modern Manaus, a metropolis of millions, unknowingly sprawls atop their ancestral gardens. Every time a farmer turns the earth along the Rio Negro, they're not just planting crops, they're waking the echoes of a civilization that understood the deepest truth of the Amazon: the real gold isn't metal. It's dirt. The notion of stone cities hidden in the Amazon has long tantalized explorers, a contradiction to everything we thought we knew about rainforest civilizations. Unlike the earthen mounds and wooden structures typically associated with the region, reports of stone ruins suggest a level of sophistication that defies conventional wisdom. Among the most infamous claims came from Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, the early 20th century explorer who insisted he'd found evidence of monumental stone architecture deep in the Mato Grosso. His journals described cyclopean walls and carved portals, fueling speculation that the Amazon might harbor ruins to rival Machu Picchu. But how much of this was fact, and how much was the fevered imagination of a man obsessed? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the tangled middle. Modern archaeology has indeed uncovered stone structures in the Amazon, though nothing matching Fawcett's grand visions. Near the Brazilian town of Vilhena, researchers documented a series of low stone walls arranged in geometric patterns, their purpose still debated. Unlike the Inca's polished masonry, these were rough-hewn rocks fitted without mortar, a practical adaptation to the rainforest humidity which would have caused elaborate stonework to crumble. Similarly, in Colombia's Serranía de la Lindosa, cave systems house stone terraces and platforms, likely used for ceremonial purposes rather than urban habitation. These finds are significant, but they're a far cry from the sprawling metropolises of Fawcett's dreams. The real challenge in verifying these claims stems from the Amazon itself. High humidity and rapid vegetation growth devour stone just as greedily as wood. Lichens etch away surfaces, roots pry apart seams, and floods scatter artifacts beyond recognition. Even if a monumental city once stood here, the jungle would have reduced it to anonymous rubble within centuries. This harsh reality has bred both skepticism and opportunism. Over the years, hoaxes have proliferated, from the infamous Crystal City photoshops circulating online to dubious relics discovered by treasure hunters. One notorious example was the so-called Amazonian Stonehenge near Amapá, later revealed to be a natural rock formation clumsily augmented with modern concrete. Yet dismissing all stone claims as fantasy would be a mistake. LiDAR surveys in Bolivia's Llanos de Mojos have revealed stone-lined causeways and plazas, proving some cultures did work with rock, just on a subtler scale than Fawcett imagined. The key difference lies in purpose. Where Andean civilizations used stone to proclaim power, Amazonian societies often employed it for infrastructure, drainage channels, fish weirs, and flood barriers. These weren't cities of gleaming temples, but of pragmatic ingenuity, their beauty hidden in function rather than form. Perhaps the most telling clue comes from indigenous oral traditions. The Yanomami speak of the Stone House people, a vanished race who built with rock but were undone by their arrogance. The Kayapo describe ancient stone markers used to navigate the forest, now moss-covered and forgotten. These stories hint at a truth archaeology is only beginning to grasp. That stone in the Amazon wasn't about permanence but adaptation. The real lost cities might not be grand ruins, but the echoes of 100 small, smart solutions, each one a testament to civilizations that mastered their world without conquering it. For centuries, the Amazon was painted as a pristine wilderness by outsiders, a place where humans were mere visitors in an untouched paradise. But these 24 lost cities shatter that myth completely. They reveal a deeper truth. The Amazon wasn't just inhabited, it was cultivated, a vast garden of human ingenuity where civilizations rose, adapted, and left behind blueprints for living in harmony with the world's most complex ecosystem. This isn't just archaeology, it's a radical rewriting of history, proving that the rainforest's greatest treasure isn't its trees or rivers, but the legacy of the people who shaped it long before modern boots ever crushed its soil. Take Terra Preta, the mysterious black earth found across the basin. This isn't just fertile soil, it's a 3,000-year-old lesson in sustainability. Modern scientists are still trying to decode its recipe, while indigenous communities today revive these ancient techniques to combat deforestation. Or consider the garden cities of the Tapajos, where streets doubled as canals and waste became aquaculture. These weren't primitive experiments, they were sophisticated systems that modern urban planners study for inspiration. The Amazon's lost cities force us to confront an uncomfortable question. What if progress isn't about conquering nature, but learning from those who mastered collaboration with it? Yet this legacy hangs by a thread. Looters, loggers, and climate change gnaw at the ruins and the living cultures still guarding them. The Mashco Pyro's deliberate isolation, the unmarked tombs swallowed by rivers, the wisdom in elders' oral histories, all face extinction not just from bulldozers but from the quieter erasure of disinterest. Preserving these sites isn't just about protecting the past, it's about safeguarding a future. Indigenous stewardship like the Ashaninka's reforestation projects or the Kayapo's drone patrols against illegal miners shows these aren't relics but living traditions. When a Kuhikugu elder points to a LiDAR map and says, "This is where our ancestors sang," they're not just describing ruins, they're offering a roadmap. The real revelation isn't that the Amazon housed great cities. It's that their builders understood something we're only now rediscovering. Civilization isn't measured by how much a culture extracts from the land, but by what it gives back. Those towering mounds, those hidden geoglyphs, those canals brimming with fish, they're not just artifacts. They're invitations to listen, to learn, to recognize that the next chapter of the Amazon story depends on whether we humble ourselves enough to hear the whispers rising from its soil. The Amazon's lost cities have spent centuries buried beneath roots and rivers, but we stand at the threshold of a revolution in discovery, one powered not by machetes and luck, but by lasers and algorithms. LiDAR technology has already peeled back the jungle's green curtain, revealing geometric wonders like Bolivia's Casarabe cities and Brazil's Inca geoglyphs. Yet this is only the beginning. Next-generation LiDAR systems mounted on drones can now scan deeper, faster, and with razor-sharp precision, capturing details as fine as individual pottery shards hidden under thick foliage. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence sifts through terabytes of data, flagging patterns human eyes might miss: a faint square of buried walls here, a telltale alignment of mounds there. These tools aren't just expanding our map of the Amazon's past, they're rewriting it in real time. But urgency shadows every breakthrough. The same rainforest that preserved these sites for millennia now faces annihilation at an unprecedented pace. In the time it takes to scan a single valley, an area the size of 1,000 football fields may be cleared for cattle or soy. Climate change compounds the crisis, as droughts expose fragile ruins only for torrential rains to wash them away. The irony is crushing. We're gaining the ability to find these cities just as the conditions that hid them are vanishing. Archaeologists now race against bulldozers and wildfires, documenting sites that may not survive another decade. Indigenous communities, the living guardians of this heritage, often stand on the front lines like the Kuhikugu in Brazil. who have partnered with researchers to LiDAR their ancestral lands before lodgers carved them apart. The stakes transcend archaeology. Each lost city holds lessons for our planet's future. The Terra Preta soils prove humans can enrich rather than deplete their environment. The Earth Builder's hydraulic systems offer blueprints for flood-resistant agriculture. Even the collapse of these civilizations carries warnings about overexploitation, climate shifts, and cultural disruption. To lose these sites isn't just to lose history, it's to forfeit wisdom we desperately need. Hope flickers in unexpected alliances. Satellite monitoring, once reserved for military use, now tracks illegal deforestation near archaeological zones. Universities train indigenous youth in 3D scanning, creating a new generation of tech-savvy custodians. And in a poignant twist, some of the most promising discoveries come from oral history's elders, pointing scientists to places their ancestors spoke of, where LiDAR then confirms the truth beneath the soil. The future of Amazonian archaeology isn't just about finding more cities. It's about listening to the land, to the past, and to the people who have kept its stories alive. The jungle's lost cities have spent centuries whispering. Now, with every laser pulse and algorithm, we're finally learning how to hear. From the sprawling garden cities of the Tapajos to the celestial stone circles of Calzone, these 25 lost cities shatter the myth of the Amazon as an untamed wilderness. They reveal instead a living tapestry of human ingenuity, cultures that thrived not in spite of the rainforest but because of it. The Kuhikugu's fish farms, the Casarabe's hydraulic cities, the Earth Builder's floating mounds, each civilization adapted to the jungle's rhythms with solutions so brilliant modern scientists are still unraveling their secrets. This wasn't just survival, it was symbiosis on a scale we're only beginning to comprehend. What unites these cities across time and distance is their reverence for balance. The Marajoara molded clay into cosmologies, the Manaus people turned waste into wealth, and the Marajó aligned their homes with the stars. All testaments to societies that saw themselves as threads in nature's web, not masters over it. Even their collapses carry lessons, traces of overharvesting in Terra Preta, signs of drought in abandoned canals. The Amazon's ancient builders left behind more than ruins. They left roadmaps for resilience in an age of climate crisis. Yet these wonders now face a race against time. Looters chip away at Montagran's spiral temple, fires creep toward the Acre geoglyphs, and rising waters threaten submerged cities we've yet to fully document. Protecting them isn't just about preserving the past, it's about honoring living cultures like the Kuhikugu and Kayapo, whose ancestors' wisdom still echoes in these sites. The same LiDAR revealing lost cities also exposes illegal logging roads inching closer every day. This is where the story turns to you. Share the names that gripped your imagination. Was it El Dorado's gilded myth, Kuhikugu's aquatic metropolis, or the warrior cloud citadels of Gran Sapasoa? Tag a friend who'd marvel at the Amazon's hidden histories. Better yet, support organizations empowering indigenous guardians or funding archaeological rescues. Every voice amplified, every donation made, becomes a vine holding back the jungle's modern invaders, not to bury these cities again, but to ensure their lessons aren't lost a second time. The Amazon's greatest secret isn't that it hides ruins, it's that those ruins whisper a truth we desperately need. Civilizations flourish when they listen to the earth. Now it's our turn